We understand how media works and how they want to pin two people against each other and they're supposed to hate each other and blah, blah.
Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. The game clock had hit 0 hours ago, but the real contest was just beginning inside the media room. The air conditioning was humming, battling the heat of a sold-out arena, but the temperature in front of the microphones was artificially low. The press wasn't there for basketball. They weren't there to dissect defensive rotations or pick-and-roll coverages. They were hunting. They wanted a soundbite. A slip-up. A single sentence of resentment they could plaster across headlines for the next news cycle. The narrative had been written before the tip-off: Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers. The golden child versus the forgotten star. The media machine had built the stage for a war, and now, they just needed the actors to read their lines. Then came the trap. A reporter, voice steady, leaning into the microphone. He didn't ask about Paige's 21 points. He didn't ask about the Wings' offensive struggles. He asked about her. About Caitlin.
Paige, I think a few of the turnovers before turnovers today, I think a few of them were picked off by Caitlin. Was there anything in particular that you saw maybe that she was kind of a step ahead, or it kind of seemed like she was jumping the passing lanes a few times?
Maybe she was a step ahead? Jumping the passing lanes? It wasn't a question. It was an invitation to be bitter. It was an opportunity for Paige to say, "She got lucky," or "I made a mistake." To feed the monster that thrives on women tearing each other down. The room went silent. You could hear the shutters of the cameras pause, waiting for the snapback. Waiting for the rivalry to turn ugly. But Paige Bueckers didn't blink. She didn't take the bait. The narrative collapsed. The reporter stuttered. The headlines vanished. The mainstream media wanted a war. They wanted Paige to hate Caitlin. They need a villain to sell their ads. But what happened in that room didn't follow the script. While ESPN tries to manufacture drama, we are here to deconstruct the lie. If you want the truth about the WNBA's shadow war, join the movement, subscribe right now. Because to understand why that silence in Indianapolis was so dangerous to the establishment, you have to realize this wasn't the first time they tried to force a feud. This trap was set years ago, on a stage even bigger than the WNBA. And to see the full picture, we have to go back to the moment the world decided only one of them could be the queen. To understand why the media was so desperate for Paige to snap in that press conference, you have to realize that this trap wasn't set in 2025. It was engineered 18 months earlier, on a night that changed television history. April 5, 2024. The Final Four. Iowa versus UConn. It was billed as the national championship before the national championship. The viewership numbers that came out the next morning didn't just break records, they shattered the logic of modern sports media. 14.2 million viewers. That number is important. It was more than the NBA Finals. It was more than the World Series. For the first time in history, the eyes of the entire sporting world were locked on two women. And in the boardrooms at ESPN and the WNBA league offices, executives didn't just see a basketball game. They saw a gold mine. But gold mines need a story to keep producing. The narrative they settled on was Bird vs. Magic 2.0. It was the perfect marketing hook. The flash of the West versus the grit of the East. The blue blood royalty of UConn versus the outsider insurrection of Iowa. They needed these two to be enemies because, in the playbook of American sports media, friendship doesn't sell ads. Friction does. They ignored the reality. They ignored that Caitlin and Paige had played together on Team USA's junior squads. They ignored that they were texting each other support while the media was busy sharpening knives. Instead, the industry spent millions of dollars building a zero-sum game. For Paige to be great, Caitlin had to be a fraud. For Caitlin to be the GOAT, Paige had to be the failure. This wasn't an accident. It was a strategy. When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, the old guard and the media ecosystem panicked. They saw her popularity as a tidal wave that might drown out the rest of the league. So, they looked for a seawall. First, they tried to use Angel Reese as the villain, the physical antagonist. But that narrative became too toxic, too racialized, and too volatile. So they pivoted. They looked at Paige Bueckers. The squeaky clean image. The Yukon pedigree. The talent that rivals anyone in history. They decided she would be the anti-Caitlin. The pure hooper who would humble the media darling. By the time that press conference happened in July 2025, the pressure cooker had been building for over a year. Every turnover was scrutinized. Every glance was analyzed. The reporter asking about jumping the passing lanes wasn't asking a basketball question. He was trying to validate a year-long marketing campaign. He was handing Paige a weapon and begging her to use it. But the establishment made a critical miscalculation. They assumed Paige Bueckers was jealous. They assumed that because Caitlin was getting the Nike deals and the headlines, Paige would be bitter. They projected their own insecurities onto a 23-year-old who sees the game differently. The origin of hate wasn't between the players. It was between the reality of the new era and the desperation of the old media model. They tried to build a wall between these two icons. But on that afternoon in Indianapolis, Paige didn't just refuse to lay a brick, she picked up a sledgehammer. And to understand just how calculated her dismantling of this lie was, you have to look at the specific evidence she dropped, not on the court, but in the silence that followed. Because what she didn't say was louder than anything the media screamed. The trap was sprung at exactly 4:15 p.m. The game was over. The Fever had won, but the score didn't matter to the man holding the microphone. He needed a headline that would bleed. The question wasn't spontaneous, it was a precision strike.
Paige, I think a few of the turnovers that before turnovers today, I think a few of them were picked off by Caitlin. Was there anything in particular that you saw maybe that she was kind of step ahead, or it kind of seemed like she was jumping the passing lanes a few times?
Listen to the framing. He isn't asking about the Fever's defense. He is asking Paige to admit she was outsmarted specifically by Caitlin. He frames the question around failure, her turnovers, her mistakes. He is begging for a defensive response. He wants Paige to say, "No, I just messed up," or "She fouled me." Anything that signals conflict. Look at this face. This is not confusion. This is calculation. In this 2-second silence, you are watching a 23-year-old athlete process the media landscape faster than the reporter who has been doing this for 20 years. Her eyes shift slightly to the left. Her jaw sets. She recognizes the bait. She knows that if she shows frustration, the headline tomorrow is, "Bueckers frustrated by Clark's defense." If she dismisses Caitlin, the headline is, "Bueckers disrespects Clark." It is a losing hand. The casino has rigged the table. Most players would panic. They would ramble. But watch what she does. She doesn't just answer the question, she flips the board.
You answered it.
You answered it. With 3 words, she strips the reporter of his power. She is telling the room, "I see what you are doing, and I am not playing." By validating the reporter's own premise, that Caitlin was a step ahead, she removes the conflict.
She's just a very smart basketball player.
She pivots immediately to praise. But it's not generic praise. It's technical. She calls Caitlin smart. She validates Caitlin's basketball IQ. In doing so, she aligns herself with Caitlin, not against her. She frames them as peers who understand the game at a level the reporter does not. It was a masterclass in media literacy. You can almost see the air go out of the room. The headline they wanted, the jealous rival, evaporated in real time. Paige didn't just dodge a bullet, she caught it in her teeth. But if you think this was just a quick-witted moment from a savvy player, you aren't looking at the bigger picture. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was the first move in a coordinated counterattack. Because just days later, the scene shifted from a press conference to a podcast, and the mask came off completely. The press conference was the defense. What happened next was the offense. If the press conference was a shield, the podcast was a sword. Days after silencing the room in Indianapolis, Paige Bueckers went on the Not Gonna Lie podcast with Kylie Kelsey. This wasn't a standard media availability. There were no team PR officials hovering in the corner. No time limits. Just a microphone and the truth. And she didn't just clear the air, she exposed the machinery.
Everybody's pinned me and Caitlyn against each other for the longest time.
Everybody. She isn't talking about the fans. She is talking about the ecosystem. The networks. The pundits. The people who sign the checks. For 18 months, the sports media industrial complex has been selling you a specific product, the zero-sum game. The idea that for Caitlin Clark to shine, everyone else must be dim. They tried to do it with Angel Reese. They tried to do it with the Olympic roster. And when those narratives ran dry, they tried to weaponize Paige. But listen to what she says next. This is the smoking gun.
But again, it's respect to the competition, so we understand that. We understand how media works and how they want to pin two people against each other.
Supposed to hate each other. She is saying the quiet part out loud. She is acknowledging that there is a script, and she is refusing to read it. By admitting that she and Caitlyn understand how the media works, she is revealing that they have talked about it. They are in on the joke. This effectively unionizes the two biggest stars in the game against the people covering them. It creates an alliance that the WNBA establishment is terrified of. Because if the hero, Caitlyn, and the anti-hero, Paige, are actually friends, where is the drama? Where is the friction that sells subscriptions? This is why the old guard is panicking. They spent decades building a league on competitiveness and toughness. They want the animosity of the 90s. They want elbows thrown and trash talk. But Caitlyn and Paige are ushering in a new era where the players hold the power, not the narratives. Paige's comments on that podcast were a declaration of independence. She effectively told the world, we are going to compete, but we are not going to hate each other just to make you rich. But while the media was busy trying to manufacture a psychological war, they missed the real war happening right in front of them. The one on the scoreboard. Because while Paige was winning the PR battle, Caitlyn was busy dismantling the league's economy. And when you look at the numbers from that same weekend, the story isn't about friendship anymore. It's about a financial takeover that makes the WNBA's leadership look obsolete. The scoreboard read 102-83. The Fever blew them out. But the most important numbers from that Sunday afternoon weren't points, rebounds, or assists. They were the decimals in the Nielsen ratings. When Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers share a court, the WNBA doesn't look like a niche sports league anymore. It looks like the NFL. It looks like the Premier League. We are witnessing an economic supernova that the league office is barely qualified to manage. Consider the reality, a standard WNBA game without these two might draw a few 100,000 viewers on a good night. Put Clark and Bueckers on the floor, and you are looking at millions. You are looking at ad rates that rival primetime television. And this is where the panic sets in for the bold guard. For decades, the WNBA operated on a model of scarcity. Low pay, low visibility, high control. The league held all the cards because the players had nowhere else to go. If you wanted to play pro ball in America, you played by the Commissioner's rules. But look at the leverage now. Caitlin Clark generates more revenue in a single commercial break than she earns from her entire WNBA contract. Paige Bueckers is likely walking into a similar financial reality the moment she turns pro. These two women are not employees of the WNBA, they are independent corporations that are graciously allowing the WNBA to host them. This terrifies the establishment. Why? Because you cannot control a player who doesn't need your paycheck. If the WNBA refuses to adapt, if they continue to allow physical targeting, if they continue to let the media manufacture toxic rivalries, if they continue to treat these icons like just another one of 144, Caitlin and Paige have the power to walk away. And if they walk, the money walks with them. The villains in this story, the jealous veterans, the slow-moving executives, are fighting for relevance in an economy that Caitlin Clark now owns. They thought they were protecting the purity of the game by resisting the new wave. In reality, they are biting the hand that is feeding them. And while the executives are sweating over spreadsheets, the tension is bleeding into the locker rooms. Because the other players see these numbers, too. And it is tearing the league apart from the inside. While the executives are looking at spreadsheets, the real fracture is happening right here. In the tunnels. In the group chats. In the silence of the locker room. For 2 years, the WNBA's reaction to Caitlin Clark has been defined by noise. We saw the Angel Reese era of engagement farming. The taunts. The ring me gestures. The physical hazing disguised as welcome to the league moments. The prevailing psychology of the WNBA peer group was simple: crabs in a bucket. If she tries to climb out, pull her back down. They treated attention like a finite resource. If Caitlin was eating, that meant they were starving. But watch Paige Bueckers. Her behavior is the anomaly. Her refusal to feud isn't just kindness. It isn't just media training. It is high-level business intelligence. Paige represents the new era mindset. The old guard and the jealous rivals view the WNBA as a single, small pie. They are terrified that Caitlin is taking the biggest slice, leaving them with crumbs. They fight for scraps. Paige Bueckers sees Caitlin Clark and realizes, we aren't fighting for slices. We are building a bigger bakery. She knows that a rivalry built on hatred burns out. But a rivalry built on excellence? That builds empires. That sells shoes. That gets you on the cover of NBA 2K. Paige isn't threatened by Caitlin's light because she knows her own star is bright enough to stand next to it, not in its shadow. This psychological divide, the business class versus the petty class, is creating a civil war behind the scenes. You have players who want to monetize the moment, and players who want to gatekeep the tradition. And sitting right in the middle of this Cold War is the most dangerous date on the calendar. The FIBA World Cup. Reports from the USA basketball senior camps suggest the atmosphere is already shifting. The old guard veterans, the legends who have run Team USA like a private country club for 2 decades, are watching nervously. They see what is coming. They know that the moment Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers wear the same jersey, the hierarchy of women's basketball changes forever. The 2 biggest fan bases in the sport, Iowa and UConn, the Fever and the Wings, are about to merge under one flag. This is a populist takeover. The veterans know that when this super team forms, the media won't be interviewing the captains. They won't be interviewing the coaches. They will be swarming the 2 kids who refuse to hate each other. The silence of the locker room isn't peace. It's the calm before the coup. The old guard is holding on to the keys, but the new era is changing the locks. And when you look at the evidence, the press conferences, the podcasts, the ratings, and the psychology, the verdict becomes impossible to ignore. The league has been fighting a war against its own future. And the cost of that war is about to be tallied. The evidence is laid bare. We have analyzed the trap questions in Indianapolis. We have dissected the podcast confessions. We have looked at the television ratings that dwarf the rest of the league combined. And when you strip away the noise, the Bird vs. Magic 2.0 narrative collapses under its own weight. This is not a rivalry. It is a rebellion. The WNBA and its media partners have spent millions trying to sell you a hoax. They looked at Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers and saw an opportunity to run the old playbook, divide and conquer. They wanted to monetize a war. They wanted the hostility of the 90s, the bad boy Pistons energy where hatred was the currency. But they made a critical error. They forgot who they were dealing with. These two aren't just athletes, they are the first generation of superstars who are digital natives. They understand the algorithm better than the people trying to exploit them. The evidence suggests that Clark and Bueckers are effectively conspiring against the media narrative. Every time Paige compliments Caitlin's IQ, she is sabotaging ESPN's debate shows. Every time Caitlin calls Paige a leader, she is devaluing the jealousy headlines. They are systematically dismantling the machine that was built to pit them against each other. The league is trying to sell a WWE storyline to an audience that wants a UFC fight. They are manufacturing kayfabe, scripted drama, in a sport that thrives on authenticity. And it looks desperate. This is the danger. The new generation of fans, the millions who followed Caitlin from Iowa and Paige from Yukon, are smart. They see the trap questions. They hear the forced narratives. And they resent it. If the WNBA continues to disrespect the genuine bond between these two icons, if they keep trying to force a fake feud down the throats of their most valuable customers, they risk alienating the very demographic that saved their league. The verdict is simple: the hatred is a product. And nobody is buying it anymore. The league is standing at a cliff edge. They can either accept that the new era is built on collaboration and mutual respect, or they can keep trying to sell a lie until the fans tune out. The hoax has been exposed. The players have chosen their side. Now, the only question left is for you. Because this isn't just about basketball. It's about a choice that will define the next decade of women's sports. The media wanted a war. They spent 18 months sharpening knives, drafting headlines, and baiting traps in press conferences. They wanted blood on the court because blood sells ads. But Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers gave them peace. This is the failure of the old guard. They assumed that two alphas couldn't exist in the same ecosystem without destroying each other. They projected their own pettiness onto two women who are too busy building an economy to worry about who gets the credit. Paige didn't take the bait in Indianapolis. Caitlin didn't take the bait in the media. And by refusing to play the villain, they exposed the system for what it is, a relic. A dinosaur trying to roar at a meteor. But the danger hasn't passed. The WNBA is still addicted to the drama. They are still trying to manufacture conflict where none exists. And the question remains, can this league survive without a villain? Can they market happiness? Can they sell cooperation? Or will they keep trying to force a WWE storyline until they alienate the very fans who saved their balance sheets? The choice is no longer up to the Commissioner. It's not up to ESPN. It is up to you. We are watching a changing of the guard in real time. The era of gatekeeping is over. The era of the 144, protecting their slice of the pie, is finished. We are entering the age of abundance. But the establishment won't go quietly. They will keep setting traps. They will keep asking the questions. So we need to know where you stand. Are you with the machine that wants to tear these women down for clicks? Are you team media drama? Or are you with the players who are smart enough to rewrite the rules? Are you team new era? History will remember this moment as the turning point. The day the players became bigger than the league. Go to the comments right now. Type Team Drama if you think the rivalry is real. Type Team New ERA if you see the truth. Let them hear you. The media tried to write a tragedy. Caitlin and Paige are writing a dynasty. And we'll be here to document every second of it.